It's AM News Review time. Welcome back on the show. And we host our guest, Ahmed Kariama, Awal Ahmed Kariama, Executive Director, Rise Ghana. But before I get to him, let's let you know, of course, that this segment is always brought to you by Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. And if you're a man, they're offering you prostate screening for free. If you're a woman, they're offering you fertility screening for free. Here's where you can locate them. Here in Accra, Spintex, opposite the Shell signboard. Kumasi, Kronoma here behind the Angel Educational Complex. There's Takrady Anaji Estate. There's Tema Community 22. There's also Techiman Hanso and Siamanzama. Their call lines 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. But just the start of the news review with Awal Ahmed Kariama, Executive Director, Rise Ghana. Good morning, Awal.
Good morning, sir, and thank you for having me.
It's good to have you join the conversation. Let's start off from what has happened recently in Garu, in the Upper East region, and that, assault by military officers. We've seen the pictures, we've seen the footage. It's heart-wrenching. We still cannot confirm exactly what led to this situation, but I'd like to find out from you, what is your take on what has happened so far?
Yes, so first of all, good morning to your listeners as well as viewers. And thank you for the opportunity to discuss the newspapers for today. And talking about the issue of Garu, I think that we, first of all, need to condemn the action. In a democratic dispensation, these actions in terms of extrajudicial methods, in terms of handling suspects, is unacceptable and should be condemned in no uncertain terms. I also want to move further to express condolences and sympathies to the families that have unfortunately been caught in the way. But that is also to say that beyond that, we need to condemn the action of the citizens in the Garu area who, after engaging the national security operatives and having them comply and then actually agreeing to go with them to the state police station, they should have exercised restraint, but not to return there. We understand that they returned there and they shot at the vehicle of the national security and tried to actually harm them. But this larger conversation ties into what we have been talking about, the fact that fake news, misinformation and disinformation is what is driving citizens to be able to take up arms against state authorities. We also know that there have been rife rumors, some of which have not been investigated, allegations of state security getting neck deep into the conflict in Boko and other areas that has seen conflict over time. So largely, if you look at the situation, there is a pattern. Okay, there's a pattern where a police officer was shot. There's a pattern where immigration officers were shot. There's a pattern where an intelligence vehicle belonging to the security authorities was set ablaze with ammunition. There was an incident where a police was escorting quite recently some market people, vehicles, and they were accosted and attacked and shot at by no less than 10 gunmen within just some few kilometers from the Garu area, even though it's in a different district. So there's a trend and a pattern building from lack of trust for the national security, building from lack of swift response from the national security operatives, because like Bob Marley said, when you give somebody an inch, the person may take a yard. So the bandits who have been causing this mayhem has started from small actions like burning wares in markets, accosting vehicles and attacking them. And when these things happen and perpetrators are not brought to book, then they become emboldened to be able to commit other more serious offenses. And as we speak, we have seen a letter from the national security about narrating the ordeal of the situation. But you see, the issue about military intervention in some of these things is that the bad nuts who actually will create this will find a way to hide. They will generally run away knowing that they have committed an offense. At the end of the day, when they go to the community, every able-bodied body is a suspect, able-bodied person is a suspect. So in the end, they may end up harming innocent people. But that also goes to speak to the narrative that if you are a community leader or a youth in a particular area, you should speak up against wrong. Okay, you see people, citizens who are not in the mainstream security forces, having weapons when there is a ban on all persons carrying weapons in the geographical area? What have you done on your own? So we have a responsibility to report some of the people we see around. And you see, people are questioning that, well, the young people have been vigilant and they have intercepted this. Yes, citizens are being called to be vigilant and to report instances like this. But your ability and your right to report ends as long as you get the matter to the police station. Lead the appropriate authorities to lead. And I must say that young people in Boko and other places must be careful with the viral, inciting, and hate speech that come as a result of the various WhatsApp audio messages that come about. I am privy to at least 2 WhatsApp audio messages inciting that people should not just hand over these vehicles to their authorities, but they should rather have burned the vehicles and killed the occupants. And in fact, it was a timely intervention of the military from Boko that has solved the situation. We would have been talking about a different matter. And you know, this country, sometimes we question a lot the legitimacy, the responsiveness, the swift action of some of the state authorities in terms of investigating matters and bringing finality to them. When you look at the case of the immigration officers, it's still pending, okay? Nobody has been, arrested and prosecuted for that matter. And so when things like this happen, it goes to fester. One side of that is that it emboldens whoever is committing that crime to continue to perpetuate that crime. The other option is that it intimidates the security authorities to the extent that they are not able to be professional, they are not able to speak up their mind, they are not able to do what they are required to do. So the situation in Garu is unfortunate. Under no basis should citizens be paraded and be treated without dignity.
Right.
That is an affront of constitution.
Right.
But coming events, they say, cast their shadows. And if you look at the trend, you will see the pattern. So the military, I think, felt that they have been pushed to some extent. And they, unfortunately, and when you are angry, the action that you take might be...
And so, I feel that it's spot on what you've said. When you're angry, of course, you may do certain things in a certain way, which may not exactly augur well for the masses, if I may put it that way. But even in bringing security to bear or restoring calm, this has to be done. They have to temper whatever anger with the right motives and the right actions. But I do get the point you're making as well, because in parts of the northern belt, we have seen instances where especially the youth have taken the law into their own hands and they do certain things, commit certain actions. It cannot be thought that these will just be let slide, you know, and like you said, you cannot attack security officials. You cannot on these WhatsApp pages. And that's becoming another issue. These WhatsApp pages with people putting all kinds of information there, sometimes information that is baseless, information that is not true, and then ordinary citizens arise and go and, you know, perpetrate actions that ought not to be perpetrated. So I do not know. But I think a lot of sensitization, a lot of education has to go into, getting people aware that it's not everything you hear that you react to. And even when you think you have the right, the security officials are those mandated to resolve these problems. And the final thing I will say, it's an issue we've discussed before, the proliferation of arms, especially in the northern belt of the country. It is by and by becoming a problem, a grave problem, and I do not know what you think that means or what it bodes in terms of the insurgency all around us. Maybe just some very brief thoughts on that, and then we shall move into the papers.
Yes, I think that the issue of small arms and the using of small arms in terms of the parts of northern Ghana, and in fact, by extension, some of the border communities across Ghana. I mean, there are weapons that are being smuggled from Burkina Faso, from Cote d'Ivoire, and others. And if you check, you realize that some of the ordinary citizens, look, I have listened just back to the audios that we spoke about and the WhatsApp. Ordinary citizens saying that they basically do not fear the security. They only respect their uniform because what they have in terms of the accoutrements they are carrying, the weapons and others, they have similar. Okay, so for citizens to openly dare And you see, there are already grievances in our various communities that have not been addressed. So for us, some of us think that it's just a matter of time that somebody feeds on these grievances to be able to recruit people, and we have a looming insurgency in our hand. So the proliferation of small arms and light weapons is a very scary situation. Unfortunately, the citizens seem to be able to evade the security forces each time because there is always a search and retrieve exercise. If you look at also the statement from the national security, they are that they went there to retrieve weapons. And I'll be surprised if they are able to retrieve weapons there because they seem to be always doing this and they don't seem to be succeeding. There was a time a certain DC of Boku Municipal asked that there should be an amnesty for people to return their weapons. But nobody turned up. I think a few people turned weapons, but then majority of the weapons are still at large. And we need to have a dedicated strategic program to be able to take up the arms, not just silence them. The ministry has been talking about silencing the guns. We need to take the guns out of the people who don't belong to using guns.
All right. Let's get into the papers now. Interesting, dynamics you've brought to the Garu Tempane conversation. And of course, the members of parliament for those areas have also, shared their thoughts on the matter. But the Ghanaian published a newspaper this morning. It talks about the Garu incident. National security restores calm in Garu. There's also a free Akoto calls for fairness in Saturday's NPP presidential primary. Bawumia cruising to landslide victory, latest survey indicates. And the Ghanaian publisher also bringing us this story. Jinapo defends Atlantic lithium deal, says it's best for Ghana. Ayo. According to him, Samuel Abu Jinapo, he has praised the transaction between the government of Ghana and the Barari DV Limited, a subsidiary of Atlantic Lithium Limited, as one of the finest mineral resource exploitation deals in Africa and beyond. The minister explained that the government made a deliberate choice to treat lithium and other green minerals differently from already mined minerals. As such, an agreement was reached with enhanced benefits for Ghana, as he says it. But then let's get into that other story. A recent poll conducted by the Center for Sustainable African Development Initiatives, this is new, UK, and Outcomes International Ghana have projected Vice President Dr Bawumia to secure a landslide victory in the New Patriotic Party presidential primary scheduled for Saturday, November 4, 2023. The poll carried out from October 10 to 20, 2023, surveyed 9,300 polling station executives across all 16 regions. According to the findings, Vice President Bawumia was anticipated to garner an impressive 80.8% of the total votes. His closest competitor, Asin Central Member of Parliament, Kennedy Ejapong, is trailing far behind with 10.4%, while Honorable Dr. Osuefri Akoto secured 1.1% and Honorable Francis Adainimo received 0.4%. Notably, 7.3% of the delegates remained undecided. But let's do this. There has also been the Global Info Analytics Survey, which pointed to findings that it wouldn't be that easy for the vice president. That pointed to the fact that Kennedy Ejapong would secure some 20+%, with the vice president not getting up to 80%. But in the end, it is November 4, D-Day, that will see how the cookie crumbles. So those are the stories there that I'd like to highlight. Let me also bring in the Find newspaper, and then I'll bring you back in. So there's that story as well, poll predicting strong lead for Dr. Bawumia. And then the bit about the lithium, as has been mentioned. Gamanye laid to rest in a solemn and culturally rich ceremony that was over the weekend. Attackers of national security officers arrested, and NADMO assures relief for every affected home in flooding disaster. Let me bring you just a snippet of that story. So there will be 3 stories to react to. The National Disaster Management Organization has provided strong assurances that every home affected by the recent flooding in the Volta and parts of the eastern regions will receive the relief and support they need to recover from the disaster. This pledge came during an inspection of relief items intended to assist those impacted by the controlled spillage from the Akosombo Dam. So 3 issues to reflect on. Bawumia supposedly cruising to a landslide victory. Then there's also that other story, Jinapo defending the lithium deal, and then NADMO. Any quick reactions, Awal?
Yes, so thank you very much. I think that let me start with the NADMO flooding. and to commiserate with the affected families in the Volta Basin and the enclave.
Right.
We are happy that now that the waters have started receding, people are picking the pieces and then getting back to their lives. It's an unfortunate situation that has happened, and going forward, this should be a learning point for the Volta River Authority as well as the National Disaster Management Organization and our country in terms of our resilience planning to prevent some of these things from happening. And then I think that some of the communities are asking for compensation and others. And I think that some of the things they are saying should be looked into, and where there is merit, the appropriate compensation should be given. And then also we need to also look at the citizenry in terms of, whilst we're asking the state to be accountable, we as citizens also need to be accountable and responsive. I mean, there are certain places where have been demarcated as an area that should not be habitable. We have found people are inhabiting these places. We have found that people have been notified to evacuate in some places and they didn't evacuate. So some of these things need to be taken into account so that we have a strategic program in place to be able to evacuate people and ensure that whatever plans for spilling the dam is taken into consideration with a human face and using a rights-based approach to ensure that lives and livelihoods are protected so that people's dreams and aspirations are in check, and then ensure that they are able to exercise this basic right to have a shelter, to live in dignity, and to live without any fear, because the trauma that this flood has brought is quite serious. And talking about you also mentioned about the lithium deal. I think that natural resources that are invested in a particular country, the government of the day, as well as the citizenry, have a legal and moral obligation to ensure that whatever arrangement and projects or programs that we are going to have around the extraction as well as imports of some of these natural resources from other jurisdictions and for national interest should be based on value for money, should be based on a sustainability and equal opportunities and equal benefits for both actors. But we have sadly observed over time some of the arrangements where, I mean, if you look at other jurisdictions, the arrangement for some of these natural resources in terms of their purchase agreement, in terms of their export agreement and others, leave so much to be desired, with Western countries taking a majority of the chunk in terms of benefits and leaving us with peanuts. I am not a fan of military interventions and military juntas and things like that. But I have followed recently that the fact that in terms of uranium at the global market, the price was 200 euros. And then the Republic of Niger was selling it or being asked to sell it at 0.8 cents to France. And then in that accord, France intends to sell it at the global market. And we have followed news recently that the military junta is saying that they are setting the price at 200 euros from their own jurisdiction. So going forward, my brief take on this lithium issue is whatever discussions, whatever arrangement that we are having, we should have value for money. We should read the fine print very well and ensure that whatever agreement that we are doing, in the end, Ghana does not only benefit today, but Ghana benefits now and in generations to come.
We're limited. We're pressed for time, Awal. So on the next point, just make it brief so we move on.
Yeah, so on the polls, I think that we've had polls that have worked. We have had polls that have not worked. It's an exciting, following my good friend Albert Sore's expose on fear delegates. We wait till November 4th to see, and we wish whoever emerges as the victor the very best of luck.
Fear delegates. Well, we'll see whether Sir John will still have a say in this primary. But the Daily Guide newspaper, two stories. It regurgitates stories we've already seen, but I'll focus on Frontiers Healthcare Services debunking allegations of corruption, and this one, Nana commissions 105 EU military vehicles, and NAM1. So let me start from here. The Economic and Financial Court in Accra has told embattled businessman Nana Appiah Mensah, alias Nam1, that it will never again adjourn his trial as a result of his lawyer not showing up in court. Nam1, who together with two of his companies have been charged for fraud and other financial crimes, told the court last Friday that his counsel had an emergency and had requested the court to adjourn the case. So that is the latest tale of the tape. Lawyer never showing up. Nana commissions 105 EU military vehicles, and they were donated by the European Union as part of efforts to enhance the nation's security and to counter terrorism. The vehicles include 13 Land Cruiser pickups, 10 GM Sierra Toyota Land Cruisers, Toyota single cabins, and Chevrolet Silverado Sierra pickups. But let me quickly go to page 14 for that reflection. You know, Frontiers Healthcare Services has been in the news a lot when it comes to corruption, and we've also sought, as a media entity, some information from the Ghana Airports Company Limited, and they have not been forthcoming to the point where the RTI Commission had to fine them over 200,000 Ghana cedis. Well, following the recent media publication of spurious, Frontiers Healthcare is saying, spurious, mischievous and false allegations of wrongdoing said to have been raised by one Okudjato Ablakwa against Frontiers Healthcare Services for its unblemished, valuable and enriching administration of the airport COVID-19 testing project. FHS, by this rejoinder, hereby debunks and rejects those allegations. You can read it on page 14 of the Daily Guide newspaper. But I always say, if there's nothing to hide, why don't you just bring everything to light? We know of certain things from the Caribbean and what has happened, Ghana. Why is all of this shrouded in secrecy? You don't hide what must not be hidden. Adwa Safo, the Today newspaper, Adwa Safo suffers humiliation during visit to Dome Market, and we want peace in Boku, groups in Upper East appeal. Those are the final bits. Any quick reflections as we go?
Yeah, so I think that, Boku and Upper East is very dear to my heart, so I'll pick it from the bottom. I want to commend...
We have 1 minute. We have 1 minute for all your reflections. So
yes, I think that we need to commend the youth for calling for peace in Boko. And then whatever public contract that we have, I think we have an obligation to make sure that all the dealings are made public, and we have a right to seek information and to demand the best. I think that our court processes need to be able to have a cap as to how long lawyers can present themselves or be available in terms of the technical difficulties they deliberately put in place, so that we can put finality to this NAM1 case. And then we want to congratulate the EU also for the investment into our counter-terrorism issue, because it's a very serious matter. Ghana on its own may not to be able to get help. And if you look at it, other jurisdictions have to go to contract private mercenary groups to be able to help them deal with the situation. So if the European Union is coming to support Ghana in this regard, I think we must commend the Ministry of National Security as well as the President and the European Union for this. And then also, Adwa Safo, I think that some of these things can be staged, as well as also they can be a feedback. So politicians need to pay attention and put their ears on the ground and be available, because you always come back to the people to seek their mandate. And then also, you need to also deliberately balance this to see whether your detractors are planting people to do this, or really is the voice of the people. Right. And they say the voice of the people is the masses, so we need to tread it balance, and she should put her ears on the ground to pick up things and use it to inform her strategies.
Brilliant submissions. Thank you so much, Awal, for joining the conversation. Awal Ahmed Karyama.
And let me congratulate the award winners of the...
I was just about to do that, but you go ahead.
That's nice, yes.
And any ones you want to single out?
Oh, yes, of course. We have our very own Antonio Apobio from the GNA in Upper East, and then Edward Adeti of the Fourth Estate. I congratulate them. Thank you. And all the others. Of course, Erastus from your end.
All right. And I'll add my voice to that. Congratulations to Team Multimedia, especially Erastus Asaridonko. You've made us so proud, and you took that gong Journalist of the Year. We're proud of you for all the work you do. And that's the note on which we cap off the news review this morning. This segment brought to you by Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. They're offering you free prostate screening, free female fertility screening. Here's where you can locate them across the country. In Accra, Spintex opposite the Shell signboard. Kumasi, Chronom Abwehia behind the Angel Educational Complex. Takrady Anaji State, Tema Community 22, Techiman Hanzo and Esiamanzima. Their call lines 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. But just the start of the news review, my very own Red Devils succumbing to the blue end of Manchester. But there was also El Clasico, and Barcelona lost 2 goals from Jude Bellingham. That and more coming your way in sports. Up next.